being recorded. So, Parshas Emor. Now, Parshas Emor, always falls out in Eor, and there's something else that always falls out in Eor, because the month of Eor is the only month that has the whole month is occupied with Sfiras Omer. Nisan is only part, Sivan is only part, but Eor, the whole month is Sfiras Omer. And in the Parsha itself, in Emor, it says, Ushmartem lochem mimocharas ha-Shabbat, and you will count from the day after Yom Tif. Yes, it's called the Shabbos here. That's a different discussion. From the day that you bring the Korban Omer, they should be 7 total, complete, full weeks. 7 weeks. Good. That's the mitzvah of Sfiras Omer. So I'd like to talk about Sfiras Omer a little bit, and so we try to count as much as we can, and if you can't do it with a bracha, you do it without a bracha. It doesn't really affect the mitzvah. You still get the mitzvah. Each night it's its own mitzvah. But because it says Tamimos, complete, whole, so we don't make a bracha when we miss a day. All right, now, we know we're counting 7 weeks, and therefore 7 weeks consists of 49 days. Now, the 49 days are really divided into 2 parts. The first 32 days up until Lag BaOmer, and then from Lag BaOmer on is 17 days, so you get a total of 32, and 17 is 49. So we've got 2 parts to the Omer. Now, what is the significance of all of this? Number one, what's the relationship with the first 32 days and the second 17 days? What relationship do they have? And number 2 is what is this Lag BaOmer business? I mean, now we don't know. They all go up to Shum Bayochai, which is an amazing thing, but we're not maybe going to be able to do that this year. And we know who to blame for that. But the point is this, that we have to understand what's going on here, these 32 and the 17. So let's begin. The Baal HaMor was Zrachia HaLevi, he was a Rishon. He writes in his Hakdama, to his Sefer, that the Nefesh, our nefesh, our spiritual entity that's within each and every one of us, is referred to as kavod. Ooh, I heard a lot of names for the neshama and the nefesh and the ruach and the yechida, but kavod? So it's David HaMelech. Let's see if you can fit it in without understanding that the nefesh is kavod. Ura kavodi. My kavod should be awakened. What's it talking about? What's it talking about? Says the Baal HaMor, it's talking about your nefesh, ura kvodi. Or we say like this, Lochein somach libi v'yogel kvodi. My heart should be happy and my kavod should be joyful. So he explains that v'yogel nefesh is v'yogel kvodi. My kavod. So kavod is nefesh. And then we say every day in davening at the beginning, Laman yizamercha kavod. What's kavod? Nefesh. So it's the Baal HaMor, another name for the nefesh is kavod. And we'll see why. The nefesh, we have to understand its role, is that it provides the human being with our life force. That's why we're alive. The minute the nefesh leaves, no more alive. And it's the first level, the lowest level of all of our spiritual edifice. So you have a nefesh, you have a ruach, you have neshama, you have a yechida, and you have the parts of the yechida that is all the way up there. Never comes down into this word. Chaya and yechida. So, therefore, since the nefesh is the lowest level, so it is very close to the physical body. In fact, in many places in Svarim, it's the nefesh is referred to as shitufa de gufa, a partner with the guf. Shitufa de gufa, a partner with the guf. So the Baal Hamor explains that the reason that the nefesh is called kavod is because the nefesh emanates from tachas kisei hakavod. The kisei hakavod, that's where, in a sense, that's the storage house for all the nefashos is under the kisei hakavod, and the nefesh stems from the kisei hakavod. What that means, we'll see maybe. But right now, that's why it's called kavod. The nefesh is called kavod because it comes from the kisei hakavod. Whereas the neshama, which is on a much higher level, that comes directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not coming from his chair. It's not coming from his throne. It's coming, it said, man de nofach midilei nofach. Vayipach bi'apav nishmas chayim, that Hashem breathed into Adam, this entity of earth, and turned it into a living being. And that was the neshama. Vayipach bi'apav nishmas chayim. And somebody explains very beautifully, it's in the Zohar, that when you blow from within yourself. So the neshama is, in a sense, a chelik elokah mima'al. Okay? It's direct. So those are the levels. We'll see why this matters. So as I said, there are actually 5 dimensions. The nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, chida. These are the levels of our spiritual edifice, who we are. We are made up of a number of different qualities and levels. Now, the ruach and the neshama, they move between the shamayim and oretz. You go to sleep, the ruach goes up. Elokim ruach shava Elokim asher nesana. The ruach goes up. The neshama also, we know, goes up and gives a report and so on and so forth. Now, that's referred to, I'm just giving you a little background right now. It's called naran. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, naran. And you'll find that mentioned in a number of places. Now, the 2 other higher levels, the Chaya and Yechida, they're always there next to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're attached to that. So we have to understand that what happens is that what we do, how we act, how we behave, has an effect not only on who we are as individuals, as a nefesh and a ruach, but all those things are affected by the chaya and yechida that are up there. And if we do good and we do well, it sustains it. And if it's not so good and not so well, it doesn't get its sustenance. Okay, now, an animal also has a nefesh. It's called the nefesh habahami, a nefesh that belongs to an animal. And whereas an animal, the one thing it does is there are 3 levels to the human being. What we do, how we function. 3 levels. The 3 levels are, number 1, thought. Thought, we think. Animals don't think. They don't think. They can't analyze anything. You can't give it a calculus problem and try to have an animal figure out. Even a monkey can't. You can't. It doesn't have that quality. That is the machshava is the neshama. Dibur, which is also not nogea to an animal. An animal has no speech. It has mutterings. It has intonations, but it doesn't have speech. You can't define an idea with words, and that's the ruach. That's why it comes from. That's why it's called ruach. Ruach is the wind, the spirit that comes out of the human being that only a human being can do. And then there's maisa, action. An animal can act. It can bump you into you. It does things, but so does a human being. So we in a sense we share many different qualities, and this is why I'm bringing this all up, because when Moshe goes up. And he goes up to Shamayim, or up to the mountain, and he elevates himself to be in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He wanted to come up to receive the Torah. So what did the Malachim say? What's this human being doing up here? This is our realm. This is where we belong. We're all Ruach. They can speak. The Haraya, they speak. They say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. They have thought. But what is this human being doing here among us? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what do you mean, what is he doing here? He's coming to get the Torah. So the Malachim said, are you serious? You're going to give this treasure, this Koach HaRuchni, to a human being? To no Hoitcha al HaShamayim. The Torah should remain up here because it won't be sullied. And we all know that the Torah has become sullied in many different ways. So, Kadosh Baruch Hu turns to Moshe Rabbeinu and says to him, well, give him an answer. Why is the Torah coming down to people and not staying up here with the Malachim? And Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm scared. So interesting. So, this is a Gemara. I'm afraid. He says, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid they're going to burn me up with the Ruach Pihem. They'll burn me with their words. You see, again, the Malach is a koach of Dibur, which is words. It's the Ruach. And so what's so special about the words of Malachim? Because the Malachim speak the Dvar Hashem, the words of Hashem. Hashem spoke words too. He spoke words in creating everything. Everything was created. Hashemayim nasu. The Ruach Piv, Shamayim. You hear the connection. Ruach Piv, Shamayim nasu. The Ruach created with words. He says, I'm afraid. That's your words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're going to burn me up. Pasuk says openly, we read this on a tiny Esther, it's from Yeshaya. He says, Kain yeh dvorai asher samti mipicha. So will be my words that I placed in your mouth. Lo yashuv elai rekom. It's not going to come back. If I say something, it's going to do what it's supposed to do. Ki im also es asher chofasti v'yitzliach asher sholachti. Hashem's words are reality. Hashem's words are fact. So this is why Moshe Rabbeinu was worried. If he's speaking the Hevel PM of the Malachim, he's going to get all burned up. So Hashem said, hold on to my kisei hakavod. Get back to that. Hold on to my kisei hakavod and answer them. And that's also strange. Right? Give him an answer. Give him an answer. What do you have to hold on to the kisei hakavod? So Hashem explained, they may be stronger than you are in terms of dibur, but not in terms of Maisa. They have no hands. They can't do anything. They can talk, but Malachim can't do anything. Their words are powerful. Don't get me wrong. They're Dvar Hashem, but that's all they got. But you, hold on to my Kisei HaKavod, and in terms of Maisa, you're greater than they are. So why did he have to hold on to the Kisei HaKavod? And this is where we're getting to with the Kavod. Because, come on, what do we mean by a kisei hakavod? You think Rebbeinu Shalom is sitting on a throne? Not sitting on a throne. He has nothing to sit with. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So why does he have a chair? You have to sit down on the chair, yeah? You sit down on chairs. But what's his kisei for? So we understand this, that the kisei hakavod, and that's why it's called kisei hakavod, is the sum total of all the kavod that a human being or the humanity of the creation can give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's where our nefesh, our neshama, the nefesh comes from. The nefesh comes from the kisei hakavod because we can act. That's kavod. I can act. I can act in line with what you tell me, and I can act in opposition to what you tell me. When I act in line what you tell me to do, I am providing kavod, because that's the only true concept of kavod, which means honor, of course, is if I can choose not to. You know, if you're forced to give kavod, it's a yena kavod. You know, can you imagine standing there with a gun and saying, "You're going to tell me how wonderful I am"? We know a few people like that. They like to say how wonderful they are. It's crazy, the world. Kisei HaKavod. But let's talk about, let me just finish this idea. So when we talk about the Kisei HaKavod, we're talking about Maisa, We're talking about action that demonstrates kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything that he created here in this world, yes, is a l'chvoidi brasif. I created it for my kavod. Now, it doesn't mean that he wants his name up in lights, and it doesn't mean that he wants. Please don't confuse it with what we call kavod. He doesn't want his name on a plaque, and he doesn't want his name, on Times Square. That's not kavod. I was somewhere yesterday over Yontif in San Diego, and somebody wanted me to give something to somebody. He says, "Look how great he is." He had a picture of Times Square, and this guy's thing was on Times Square. I said, "Oh, wow. Times Square. Are they? How wonderful." Okay, we got the idea. That's not covered. When we talk about covered, and that's how we started out, remember? That there's two parts to the Omer. The first 32 days, which we said, yes, is what? What's the gematria of kavod? 32. The part of the Omer is directed for one thing and one thing only, for us to build, create, to enhance our kavod shamayim, the kavod we have for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what happens during the first 32 days of the Omer. We'll see how that works. Now, that can only come, as I said earlier, from an action. The actions, the way we behave, the way we follow what it is HaKadosh Baruch Hu has determined that we should do, and we do it, having a choice not to do it, that's giving kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's drawing. Now, if you really want to understand, I think we've mentioned this also very many times, that the word kavod, the shorish is kaved. What's kaved? Heavy. What does that have to do with heaviness? Kavod and heaviness? Anything that has, let's do it this way. It's also referred to in the Megillah as kavod. That's kavod. Kavod. Yakar, kavod. What is this business? Heavy? Well, what are we talking about? So beautiful, Lashon HaKodesh. What's yakar? Expensive. What's expensive? Something that's valuable. If it has no value, it's very easily, it's easily to be moved away. I can get it from you very easily. But if you got a diamond, it takes a lot for me to get it from you. Right? That's kaved and kal. Kal is lightweight, garnished. Kaved is value. What's the ultimate value? Is kavod shamayim. When you acknowledge and you understand that the only true value in this universe is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's kavod. Tell you another thing. When we talk about kavod, it's heavy. And something that's heavy is hard to move, right? As we said, if I want to get it from you, I have to put in a lot of effort. It's heavy. It has a lot of content. There's all kinds of content. There's kaved, which is heavy in content physically, and there's kavod, which is heavy in content spiritually. That's what kavod is and kaved. And by the way, how do you say liver in Lashon HaKodesh? Why? Why? Because it's the heaviest organ in the human body, because it's full of liquid, blood. Kaved. That's why it's called kaved. Okay, so now we got kaved. So what we have to understand is the first 32 days is effort to be put in, and it's getting closer to the end, so we better hurry up. Effort to build our kavod shamayim, our appreciation of how grateful we have to be that we do have a choice, and we can bring kavod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what the Kisei HaKavod is all about. I'm sorry, you had a point to it.
Just wanted to ask if in the context that I was saying, Kisei HaKavod would mean like the metaphorical seat, like a county seat to happen.
That's an interesting way of putting it. But it is certainly not a chair. Right. And it is the place that the Kavod Shamayim, is all human activity. Excuse me.
Human, you said.
That's right. All human activity gets nervous when I do that. I know. All human activity, can either, create Kavod Shamayim or not create Kavod. Now, where is it stored, so to speak? Where does it lie? And that's why the nefesh comes from the kisei hakavod, because it's coming from beneath the kisei hakavod, put into us, give us that choice. Either we can be like a behemoth that has a nefesh bahamis, or we can have a nefesh that is the highest of the high and connected to the neshama and all the other areas that are connected on high. So far we've got an understanding of the 32 days of the Omer. The 32 days of the Omer is Kabod, is 32, and that's the time for we to work on our Kabod to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
32 is also late, isn't it?
Yes, it's also Lev, 100%. We'll get there too. But that's, you're very good. It is Lev. Yes, the Lev is 32. Binas Halev. What's Binas Halev? Understanding heart. What do you mean understanding heart? I don't understand with my heart, boom, boom. I mean, I understand with my head. What does it mean, the heart? The heart is your emotions, right? That's your heart. It also pumps your what? Blood. What is the blood? Nefesh. Ki Adam hu nefesh. The nefesh, that's the life force. And the Lev is when, Mikol Mishmar Nitzor Libecha, says, no, but I'm Mishlei, says Shlomo HaMelech. Mikol Nitzor Libecha. You have to constantly be careful with your heart. And he doesn't mean, make sure you don't have to have open heart surgery. What he means is that what you're feeling inside has to be a tshuka, a desire, a connection, a love, a wanting. That's where it comes from. What do you want? Your nefesh wants. It's so powerful. Remember, many times I've said that the word nefesh also means to desire. Im yesh es nafshechem, if that's what you want, that's coming from our lev. The lev, it's also 32. But now, ultimately, the ultimate goal of all of creation is, we say it 3 times a day, if you daven 3 times a day. And you say, Al Kain Nekavel L'cha Hashem Elokeinu, right? That's the second paragraph of Oleinu. And we say, L'chol b'nei basar yikru b'shmecha. Every human being will call out your name, nothing else. There's nothing else. L'hafnot elecha kol rishei arts, even those who are the most vile people in the world will have to come to terms with the fact that it's you. The Yedu Kol Yoshvei Seibel and everyone existing on the earth. Ki l'cho tichra. Only to you do we bow. Kol berach tishava tichra kol berach. Every knee should bow to you. Tishava kol lashon. Everyone should swear in your name, not at you. Lefikach Hashem Elokeinu yichru v'yipolu l'chvoid Shmecha, to honor your name. The Yakar Yitnu, they give cover, Yakar also, cover and Yakar. B'kablu Tula Masol Machusecha, and they'll all accept the yoke of your kingship, and that's why it's so all totally connected to the nefesh that desires and wants, that functions properly if you want to. Now, the nefesh has another name besides Kavod. This is not brought by the Baal Emor. Shlomo HaMelech said it. Where did he say it? He said, Gam below das, nefesh lo tov. If you don't have das, your nefesh is not good. Now, we've explained the das, right? That means the intellect to make the choices. That's how you make your choice. Gam below das, if you function without thinking about what you're doing, and you do it anyway, nefesh lo tov. So if you do have das, what is your nefesh? Tov. So tov is also the nefesh. We'll see even more. The Gra points out in Atbash, you're familiar? I've talked about Atbash, Aleph, Tov, Beis, Shin, Gimel, Kuf, and so on. The word nefesh, the nun, listen carefully, in Atbash is a test. The vav, the pay of nefesh, is a vav. And the shin is a base. So what do you got? Tov. In Atbash. Atbash is the same. Do you know what I mean by Atbash? Maybe make it clearer. Atbash means Aleph is connected to a Tov, Beis is connected to a Shin, Gimel is connected. Atbash, Gardak, Hatzvap, right? So the Vav is a pay. The Nun is a Tes, and the Beis is a Shin. So we've got Tov and Nefesh, the same thing. It's amazing. What is Tov? That's how you get to your goal. Remember we said that hundreds of times, I think, and maybe not that many. I'm exaggerating. But Tov means anything that's getting you to your goal. Anything that is, you have a goal and you want to get to somewhere, and something is impeding that process, that's called the opposite of Tov, Ra, broken. So once we understand this, that the nefesh is Tov, and the nefesh is kavod. What's the gematria of Tov? 17. So the first part is the kavod, and the second part is Tov. And it all has to do with your nefesh. Now, I know it's a little esoteric, okay? It sounds a little bit but it's so lamaisa. Because you're counting the Omer. What are you supposed to do with it? Yeah, I know. Chesed, Shebechesed, and Gvul, Shebechesed, that's all the heebie-jeebie stuff. But this is much more than that. This is telling me, what does it mean to me? What am I supposed to do? How am I going to function? During this time, what you can accomplish in Sfira, you can't even accomplish on Yom Kippur. Ad Kedei Kach, says Arizal. Don't waste it. Learn. We've still got some room for cover. Still time. It's not 32 yet. We have time for the cover. Now, so what was the purpose of this whole business of counting? To get to what? 49 days we count to get to the 50. What was on the 50? Matan Torah. That's the Torah. What's Torah? Kilekach? Toiv nosati lochem Torah al tazav. Ain't covered? Ela Torah. All this was to get to the Torah. It was the preparation to reach the Torah, which is our guide, our lesson, our instructions to get where we were supposed to be gotten in the first place, which is Gan Eden, which is Olam Haba, which is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Now, we can accomplish that during this time. If we've acquired Kavod Torah, if we acquired the recognition that every action I do can affect Kavod Torah, Kavod Shamayim. Once we have that, now we're ready to acquire the Tov of Torah. The Tov comes after the acknowledgement of the Kavod. I may have told you about this once before, but the famous, it's brought in Abbas to Rabbi Nosson, a story, not a story, it's an event with Rabbi Akiva. And it goes like this. They tell us that Rabbi Akiva was a total ignoramus till he was 40 years old. And at the age of 40, he began to learn Aleph Beis with the children. Now, you have to understand, we're talking about Rabbi Akiva, that all of Torah Shebaal Peh that we have since Rabbi Akiva only comes from him and his Talmidim. That's what Rabbi Akiva was. Now, how did he change at 40? So the famous story, or the event was, I don't like stories. Stories, that's made up. It's not made up. He was sitting at a brook, and he saw water dripping on a stone. And drip, drip, drop, drop. And it bored a totally symmetrical circle hole in that rock. Says Rabbi Akiva, if water, which is so soft, can make such an impression on a rock that is so hard, Torah, which is so powerful, it shouldn't make an impression on my flesh and heart, my heart. And he came to a realization, but he came to a real important realization. Let me ask you a question. That first itty bitty, teeny weeny drop, did it have an impression on the rock? You say no. Okay. Any other thoughts? No. That would be obvious. Sorry. It's an obvious point. But not so. Because if a first rock doesn't make any impression, then the second drop is a first drop. Mm-hmm. And first drops don't make any impressions. Right? So even that little teeny bitty, powerful, weak water dripping had an effect on that hard rock. But that was only with consistency. Mm-hmm. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the way we have to understand. We can't just say, all right, today I'll be from, tomorrow, all right, I'll make up for it. I'll say, I'll do tshuva. No. Consistency. We have to be consistent with our connection to Torah. When Rabbi Akiva attained his das to have a nefesh tov, he switched from a nefesh lo tov because he had no das. He didn't have das Torah. He didn't have any of this. And he sat down with little kids and he learned Aleph Beis just like any other 6-year-old, 4-year-old, until he became Rabbi Akiva because he was consistent. So the 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva who died during the Sfira. Now, why do you think they died dafka during the Sfira? So the Gemara tells us, Shelo Nahagu Kavod. Here's that word again. Kavod Zabazeh. And therefore they missed out on the Tov. They were the ones that were supposed to be Megala. They were the ones that were supposed to reveal to the world what was not revealed at Ma'aber Sinai, except to individuals. And they were going to be the ones that they were going to reveal Yesod Ta'ameo Tzfunoseo. They were going to give us the depth, the inner power of what the Torah is all about. It should have come from Rabbi Akiva and his base measures. Now, they didn't show kavod to one another. Now, we have to understand something here. The obvious question is, who are we talking about? They were Tanoim. What did you think? They called each other names? Huh? What does it mean? Lo noagu kavod zeh b'zeh. Lo noagu kavod zeh b'zeh means they didn't acknowledge that you and me are one, and I need you like you need me. I'm sitting and learning Torah. You're sitting, not in any way diminishing your Torah. But I don't need your Torah. I'm doing it myself. There was this disconnect. They recognized that they're all Talmidim of the same Rebbe, and they're all Rabbeim to the same Talmidim. That's the way Torah works. And because of that, we have Avelis during this time. Now, let me ask you a question. 24,000, it's a big number. But 24,000 people died at the Chet of
Cosby.
No, and Balfour. 24,000 men, Balfour, yeah. 24,000. So do we have a tinus for that? Do we have Avelis for that? We don't have any Avelis for that. Why do we have Avelis? Because 25, that's a terrible number. But in our history, a lot more than 25,000 people have been murdered. And we don't call out Avelis. Do we know why? Because it wasn't for their death. It was for the destruction of what could have come out of that base measures. That Gilui, that revelation, that amazing revelation of what Torah truly is. Shelo noagu kavod zeh b'zeh. So they were not zocha to the toif. The Tov is the key to get to the goal, the ultimate goal. Now, that brings us to Lag Bomer. We talked about the first 32 days, the second 17 days, but somehow the day of the 33rd day stands out. Because, in fact, that Gilui was somewhat revealed. But on Lag Bomer, by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Talmud Rabbi Akiva, after the whole Maaseh with the 24,000, he revealed the Zohar. He revealed the Tzvunos HaTorah and the Sodos HaTorah, the Yesodos of Torah and the Sodos of Torah. He revealed a portion, minuscule, but he revealed something. And that's our great simcha, because we were not left totally bereft. We were left with Shimon's gilui of what's going on in Torah and the power of Torah. Rabbi Akiva had a nefesh that was low tov, and he turned it into tov with consistency. We have to learn that that's how we have to work. Now, during the days of Sira, Kavod Torah, recognition of those who learn Torah, understanding that the Torah is not just another subject, for goodness gracious. Always we like to repeat this. I have a doctor in my shir in the morning, and very, very fine fellow. He was the president of the shul in San Diego. That's why we have a connection. Yeah, he was the former president in San Diego, where my children are right now, and maybe that's a whole different story. But I asked him a question. I said, "Tell me something. You went to medical school, right? Who was your physiology teacher?" Not sure. Who was his teacher? I don't. Who was his teacher's teacher? Are you kidding? Ask anybody in any subject. Who were the teachers? Do you know how far back we can go? I can go straight back to the go. And that doesn't mean that I'm also related, but that's a different story. But I know his Talmidim and their Talmidim and their Talmidim, all the way down to me and even beyond. I mean, back. Where's that come from? Where's that come from? It goes all the way back to who? To Rashi, to Rabbeinu Tam. Where does it all go back? To the Baal Shem Tov. Where does it all go? It goes back and back and back to Maimon Har Sinai. That's who we are. And that's how we can acquire das. You have to acquire the ability to make good choices. And I've told this also over, I'm repeating myself, but I'm going to tell it. I have granddaughters that are twins, and they had a special relationship with one another. I mean, they didn't have to talk. They knew exactly what the other one was thinking and talking, and said, going to say and when to say it, and they finished each other's words and so on. I mean, amazing. And they were very little, I don't know, 4 years old. There's Aviva and Shifra. And Aviva says to Shifra, "Shifra, you have bad midos tovos."
Good.
You have to have good choices. You have to make the right choices, not bad midos tovos.
Positive.
Is that something? And I have another granddaughter that told her little daughter, who was going out to play with her friends, said, "Shalva, make good choices." That's what we're here for. That's it. Our whole, it's an illusion. Anything else is a simple illusion. We have within us the das, the seichel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. I'll tell you what, I think this is, who says this? I think it's Rav Shimon Falash, also in this week's Parsha. To talk about the two goats. Mm-hmm. The two goats. Very interesting about these two goats. One is going to be a carbon, and one is going to be thrown off a cliff in Lazazel. Good. Now, the person who is busy trying to get these two goats, so the halacha is they had to be the same in weight, the same in looks, and the same in value. You had to pay the same amount, and that'd be exactly the same.
Goats, not
the goat. No. Okay. It wouldn't be bad if the people would be like the goats, but all right. But no, they have to be exactly the same, right? Now, then there's a big difference. The more the same they are, the greater the difference when the true difference comes about. Correct? You can see it so clearly. So here's one of them. They're both sitting, I mean, both of them are still look exactly alike, same exact. And one is going to be a korban lashem. They make the goro, the lottery. You're going to be a korban, and they're both staying there. And they take the korban and they slit its throat. And it's bleeding all over, and they're bringing it onto the mizbeach. So, what does the other goat think? If he had cognitive thought, if he had das, what would he think? Shoo! Oh boy, that could have been me. And it's not me. Oh, poor guy. I bet he wishes he were here. I mean, he would be thinking that I'm in a much better position than he is. And then they take this goat, that's big shot goat, and they take it out into the desert, bring it up to the top of a cliff, and all the way up and say, look at me. I'm looking at the view. Can you imagine this gorgeous view? I've got it, and that guy hasn't. Doesn't have it. Oh, how wonderful, until it's all over. Push him over the cliff, and he's gone. So says Shamshim Fall Hirsch, that's the way we are. That's us. We think, oy vey, this is terrible. We know what's good and we know what's bad. We don't know. We don't know what Hashem has in mind. But one thing I do know, I know what he's told me to do. And when I follow what he tells me to do, I'm getting closer and closer to him. And that's what this month is all about. Okay, so the bottom line, I mean, I did want to get to it. I know you don't like me get that. But there's the ultimate joy. The ultimate joy here is the culmination of the Sphira. The 32 days of Kavod, the 17 days of Tov, and then comes Matan Torah. But always remember that the goal of the Torah is to turn ourselves into Torah personalities. It's not just to know information. My computer knows a heck of a lot more than I do. It does. I push a button, and I get an answer to a question that I didn't know. How did he know it? Knows more than I know. I have to admit it. I'm sorry. Knows a lot more than I know. He even knows how to spell better than me. Yes. Right? But it's a piece of machine. I have a nefesh, and I have a neshama, and I can make choices, and it can't. I make the choices for it. So the ultimate joy is to take pride in our choices, to make good choices, and make sure that we follow through with the what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And I'll conclude with one last story, which I probably told you all so many times. Mm-hmm. They had a big competition in their community. They had a brand new Sefer Torah, and they needed a mantle. They needed a cover for the Sefer Torah. And they had all the ladies in town started making mantlach for the Sefer Torah. And one was it was amazing. It was beautiful. It was so nice. Everybody was enthralled with it. So they put it on the Sefer Torah, and lo and behold, it was too short. It didn't cover the whole Torah. So she says, oh, no problem. Just cut off the bottom of the Torah and everything will be all right. Got the picture. Everybody's willing to cut it off because I want it. Because I want to be spiritual. I want to be at the Koso. I want to be me. And it's not about me. It's about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is what he wants. And don't cut off the Sefer Torah just because it's convenient. And with that, we understand what Sfiras Emor is really all about. And why the Arizal said you could accomplish more in Sfiras Emor than you can on Yom Kippur. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Yeah, okay. But only if you think about it. It's a lot of, you get full and joy a little bit, but you got to think about it. Okay.